recording here. Close Steam here. Anyways, I just wanted to make a quick video on this topic. Um, every now and then, when you're on semen retention, you might get these strong urges, and it's like this urge to lust, to just fantasize and to not necessarily watch adult videos because that's like the extreme and that is extremely destructive. So like I obviously try to avoid that. And then obviously avoiding masturbation, avoiding PMO because that drains your energy. Um but specifically the lusting, I just notice that I'll randomly get these urges. And most likely it means that I'm not following my purpose. Because if I was following my God-given purpose, I wouldn't need to lust. I wouldn't need to fantasize. And so when I get that lustful urge and I start fantasizing, it just makes me wonder, maybe I'm not following my purpose in that moment. And I was having these lustful thoughts not too long ago. Um, Let me actually give you kind of a backstory of what happened today. So today I went to this um, Monster Trucks event. Then afterwards we went to go get some food at a restaurant. Okay, and at the restaurant there were a lot of attractive women. I'll just say that. Now obviously I was with my family and I'm not even 18. So there's no way that I could have gotten with any of them. So it makes no sense. Why would you lust after people that you can't get? But anyways, yeah, one of them had a really big, really fat butt. I'll just say that. One of them just had a fat ass. I'll just say that. And that just got me lusting because I saw it. You know, just naturally I looked at it. She was running and it was like jiggling and it just made me extremely lustful afterwards. Now there are some things you can't control like that, like a girl that has, you know, a fat butt and then they just start running and you just glance over and you happen to see it, you know, you can't control that. So I'm just wondering, how do you deal with situations like that? And honestly, I don't have an answer completely right now. I have a rough idea and I can kind of give my thoughts here. One thing I've tried doing is not just being aware of what's going on. So, you know, with many spiritual teachers, they just tell you to observe your thoughts, observe, you know, so you're not reacting. But I find that just observing, that's the spiritual side. They kind of forget the fact that we're in a human body. Like they forget to, because they've transcended most of the issues. That's why they're spiritual teachers, because they don't really have to deal with lust. They don't really have to, because they already transcended it. For us human, you know, people who haven't gotten to that stage yet, you know, they need to come. They don't explain how to do it for us, basically. Like they just say observe, but if you can be observant and still lust, you know, you still fall into it. So it's like And what I've noticed is you can't just give spiritual, you have to give the practical side. So practically, we're human beings, so you have to engage your mind. Because if your mind is not focused on anything, it's naturally just going to take the path of least resistance, which is lusting. So you have to be focused on something. That's why purpose is important, but also um, when you're when you're in when you're in a specific scenario, you're going somewhere. Be cognitively engaged. Because if you're cognitively engaged, um, it's going to be difficult to be distracted. Cognitively engaged on whatever it is you're doing. Because a lot of the times you're doing something, and then you get distracted by whatever you notice that captures your attention, which could be the moment, it could be anything. So what I've noticed, and I tried this, wasn't perfect at it today, but being cognitively engaged in addition to purpose, in addition to being observant, but being cognitively engaged is probably the biggest thing on whatever it is you're doing. Because that focuses, like, because you're not just, you have the physical body, the emotional body, the mental body. You can't just focus on the spiritual plane and say, okay, just be observant, because you haven't you can't just ignore biology, just ignore the fact that you have a brain that's constantly in thought. You have to engage that as well. So you have to be cognitively engaged. And then I guess you could level it up by saying be emotionally engaged. Because I noticed maybe I might be emotionally detached. Be emotionally engaged. Be cognitively engaged. You know, cognitive basically just means mental because that's your brain. Physically engaged, involve your movements because there's different planes, right? You can't just take because the spiritual teachers, they just jump straight to like the, I don't even know what you call it, like the astral body or something. You know, the part of you that's like not physical, like the part of you that's just observing everything, but you can't just ignore every other part of you, the brain, the emotions, because those are still active. So what I would notice is even if I just started observing my thoughts would still have a lot of power over me because I wasn't focusing those areas. I wasn't focusing the mental body, wasn't focusing the emotional. I was skipping over that. You can't skip over it. Otherwise, it'll take the path of least resistance, which is whatever your habits are. So I guess basically what you need to do is you just need to focus on what it is that you're doing, but engage everything. Don't just observe. Engage your mental, your brain. Engage your brain. Be mentally engaged in whatever it is you're doing totally. And to step it up, because I haven't actually, that's like the first step that I've been realizing slowly. But you also have to be, I think, emotionally engaged as well as physically engaged, because that's what it means to be alive, right? You have the physical, you have the emotional, the mental, you have all these things. You can't just bypass all of that and just say, oh, I'm just going to observe it. No, because you're a human. You have to experience what it means to be human. So you have to engage all of those. And I think once you engage all of those, you reach the ultimate level of totality. And so that's what it means. That's what it feels like to be alive. That's what it feels like to actually enjoy life, is to be physically, mentally, emotionally, and then spiritually engaged with life. And then that's where you get your joy. That's where you get your juice. And so you won't need to lust because you'll already have your juice from living life properly, because we haven't really been living it properly. Um, and that's just kind of a realization I've been having. So you might be wondering, okay, how do I engage with life physically, mentally, emotionally? There's no guide as far as I'm concerned. Like, I haven't seen anyone talk about this. So, but literally all you have to do is just figure it out. Just literally, when you're doing something, how do I engage my emotions with it? When you're doing something, how do I engage? I would say start with cognitively, because when I started engaging cognitively with things, my whole life started to change. My grades went up a lot higher because instead of just sitting there observing, because that's what the spiritual teachers say, just observe. But then you're not actually thinking, you're just sitting there observing, so you don't actually learn anything in school. Um, you have to engage cognitively as well. And then once you do that, then I could say start adding in emotions, engage emotionally as well, in addition to cognitively. And then once you add in the emotions, engage physically, start adding your movements in your body, you know. Um, when you get the physical sensation, like goosebumps or whatever, use that to your advantage to fulfill your purpose, right? You just slowly add things in because you haven't gotten used to it yet. Like I said, adding in being engaged cognitively goes a long way on its own. So then you can kind of slowly add in emotionally, then physically, and then spiritually is when you're observing. Then the spiritual side will benefit you because you already have gotten the basics of being human. Then you can add in the spiritual side. Although you should probably continue with your meditation and spiritual practice until that point. But I do think that you should go through cognitively, emotionally, and then physically engaging with life before you decide, okay, let's look at it spiritually now. And like I said, when I started engaging cognitively, so many things changed. Like, it was really fast too. Like, I look at my grades, all of a sudden I have straight A's. It's like, I don't even know how that happened. It was God. It was God. I'll just say that. It was God. So, thank God. So yeah, this is just my thoughts with the lusting, and how does this relate to fixing the lusting? Basically, once you're cognitively, physically, emotionally engaged with life and whatever it is you're doing, and you're using that for God's purpose, you're asking for God to show your purpose. And even when you're not doing, because you're not going to be doing your purpose 24/7. Let's say your purpose is to make music. You're not going to be making music 20, you're going to have moments where you're not doing that. What are you going to do in those moments? You're just engaging with life. So literally what it is, in my opinion right now, is finding your purpose. But whenever you're not doing your purpose, you're just engaging with life fully, like totally. And You don't have to get to that stage immediately. You just have to slowly add in the different stages, which is mentally, so you engage with life mentally. Then you slowly add in the emotions. Okay, I'm going to engage with life emotionally as well. And then I'm going to add in physically. Okay, I'm going to allow my physical sensations to help me engage with life. You slowly add things in. Because if you just do it all at once, it can get overwhelming. So slowly adding things in, and it makes a lot more sense because you actually see what those things are doing for you when you add them in individually. So, anyways, I hope that makes sense, and I hope you got something from this. Let me know if it makes any sense or if you can relate. And it was just a quick little video diary, and I'll see you in the next one.